Chapter 560 is Who Are You? Volume 36. Moving forwards, the middle-aged man took his badge and immediately turned to leave. You're following me to the academic affairs office. He began to walk as he spoke. Who Are You? Was momentarily stunned. This guy's a little insensitive. Does he think I'm just some loser trying to get free food? Please wait. I don't think I have the time. Who Are You? Hurriedly stood up and followed him. Why don't you have time? The middle-aged man frowned, and his face was still as cold as ever. Who Are You? Forced to laugh and said, I'm here to participate in the Sea God's fated blind date. The middle-aged man's expression was full of disdain. You want to participate in the Sea God's fated blind date? You're going to follow me to deal with this issue of freeloading. I don't care if you were once a student from the inner courtyard. At the very least, you aren't considered one now. I have never seen you before, and even if you were, coming back to the inner courtyard to get free food goes against the academy's rules. Follow me to be investigated, and if I find out that you're here often to freeload, even if you were once a student from the inner courtyard, I will cancel your status as a student and take away your graduation certificate. Who Are You? Was astonished. He couldn't help but ask, is it this serious just for a meal? Furthermore, I'm still a student from the inner courtyard. The middle-aged man laughed coldly. The academy has been too lenient. That's the reason why villains like you have thrived and succeeded. Food in the inner courtyard is so precious. How can it be given to a person like you who rips people off just like that? Just look at how much you've eaten. Do you know how much this food is worth? This middle-aged man had stopped Who Are You, and his voice wasn't soft at all. Wu Feng, Shiwanyu, Ningtian, Dahuabin and Douluo all heard him. Their expressions were all a little strange at this moment. However, even Wu Feng, who was never friendly towards Who Are You, didn't have a sadistic look on her face. This teacher was going a little overboard. Even if a student who had graduated from the inner courtyard came back for a meal, how could that lead to his graduation certificate being stripped? Since when did Shrek Academy become so tyrannical? Who Are You? Heaved a sigh. He would probably have reacted angrily if he hadn't been in Shrek Academy. However, he had always treated Shrek Academy as his home. He respected every single one of Shrek Academy's teachers, and so he forced down the fury in his heart as he lowered his voice and said, why don't we do this? I'll pay for the food that I've just eaten. I really can't afford this delay. He had already promised his eldest senior sister, and would probably run into big trouble if he didn't hurry over in time. What if his eldest senior sister didn't let him graduate? Pay. You're thinking of paying now. The middle-aged man instantly felt like he had grabbed onto Who Are You's tail. Where were you earlier? Furthermore, how do I know if this is the first time that you've been freeloading from the academy? Follow me back to be investigated. We'll revisit this once the investigation is complete. He turned to walk out as he spoke. Please wait. Teacher, Ningtian strode over and blocked this middle-aged teacher's path. Why haven't I seen you before, teacher? I can vouch that he's part of the inner courtyard. The middle-aged man was momentarily stunned. I'm a new teacher who handles discipline. You don't know me, but I know you. Your name is Ningtian, and you come from the Seven Treasures Glazed Sect. You can vouch for him. Are you sure? If you're covering for him, then you will also be punished. Ningtian frowned and said, Teacher, he's often not around because he's usually outside carrying out missions. That's the reason why you've never seen him. Even though you're responsible for enforcing discipline, you can't be so unreasonable. You haven't even asked his name, so how do you know he's not part of the inner courtyard? If there's someone who is most worthy of eating in this canteen right now, it's not me, and it's not anybody else here. It's not even you. It's him. The middle-aged man was already convinced when Ningtian stood forward to vouch for Who Are You, but he erupted furiously when he heard her words. Does that mean a student has a higher status than me, as a teacher? Do you know I can punish you for humiliating a teacher for what you've said, according to the academy's disciplinary rules? Bullshit. Who Are You and Ningtian were both holding back because they were concerned about the academy, but there was someone here who didn't have a good temper. Wu Feng wouldn't have said anything if this middle-aged man was targeting Who Are You, but she wouldn't have it if he was targeting Ningtian. Her fiery temper immediately exploded as she arrived beside Ningtian in a flash. You suspect our identity as students in the inner courtyard, but we're starting to suspect your identity as a teacher. We've never seen you before, so what do you have to prove that you're a disciplinary teacher? Since when has Shrek Academy said that former students can't eat in the academy? When have we had this rule? You're embarrassing yourself. Detain all of us if you can. The man was infuriated when Wu Feng talked back to him. All right, then I'll take every single one of you away. I want to see what else you all have to say in front of the academy's rules. Teacher, we have to be reasonable, and that's required even for a teacher. I think you were probably hired from outside, and you must have had a hard time passing the academy's test. Don't ruin yourself. Shiwanyu said grimly as he stood up as well. He wasn't the only one. Dahuabin and Douluo walked over slowly, and they circled around this middle-aged man from the other side. The other students from the inner courtyard all stood up and surrounded him. Everyone had a black look on their faces. Of course, students weren't allowed to offend teachers. However, this was Shrek Academy's inner courtyard, and the students from the inner courtyard had a different status compared to students from the outer courtyard. In Shrek Academy, even students from the inner courtyard could become teachers if they were willing to go to the outer courtyard. The middle-aged man's words had already incurred public anger, even though most of these students didn't know who Are You was. They all had sentiments attached to their academy's canteen. If everyone who wanted to come back for a free meal like Who Are You did would be punished by the academy, and might even have their graduation certificates confiscated, that made everyone conflicted. Even though they didn't say anything, they still surrounded this teacher from the inner courtyard. Stop this, everyone. This is just a misunderstanding. Who Are You hurriedly interjected. He glanced at Ningtian, and a grateful look appeared in his eyes. Ningtian had been the first to step forward. Ningtian smiled faintly and said, we have never thought about offending and talking back to our teachers, but shouldn't teachers respect us students as well? Yuhao, you should take your leave because you're busy. We'll deal with this. Wu Feng, can you please look for Dean Kai? I've just seen her. She should still be in the inner courtyard. Please ask her to come and deal with this. If we are really wrong, then we will admit our mistakes and let the academy punish us however they like. Otherwise, we must ask the academy for an explanation. Who Are You nodded in Ningtian's direction and said, all right, sorry for the trouble. That was the most appropriate way to deal with this matter. He didn't dare to stay any longer and hurriedly walked out. You may not leave. The middle-aged man suddenly reached out and grabbed at Who Are You's arm. The aura on his body flared up at the same time, and soul rings swiftly rose from beneath his feet. They suddenly emanated soul power and immediately pushed everyone around him a few steps backward. Hey! Who Are You didn't expect his teacher to be so dissatisfied with the result that he would actually decide to make a move against him. The teacher's palm contained a formidable soul skill, and 8 soul rings had risen from beneath his feet. Being able to become a teacher in Shrek Academy's inner courtyard meant that he was quite strong. However, his 8 soul rings weren't in the optimal combination. He had 2 yellow, 3 purple, and 3 black soul rings. Even though it was considered good, it wasn't considered much within Shrek's inner courtyard. A cold light flickered in Who Are You's eyes. He had been holding back again and again, but this man just didn't know when to stop. Even the nicest people had a threshold, not to mention Who Are You. Who Are You raised his left hand, and his palm immediately became jade green in color. He didn't release his martial soul, but he pressed his hand toward the middle-aged man's palm just like that. The middle-aged man grabbed Who Are You's palm. He had thought this through, and displayed his cultivation rank as a soul Douluo to intimidate these students from the inner courtyard. Just as Shiwanyu had guessed, he was an external staff member who had just arrived recently. One often felt good about becoming a teacher at Shrek Academy, and that was the reason why he naturally felt a little arrogant. Today, he had witnessed Who Are You eating in the academy's canteen without his uniform, while he was also in charge of discipline. He immediately wanted to stamp his presence among the inner courtyard students, but who knew that doing so would incur resentment from so many students. He had thought this through. He would detain the first perpetrator before he would intimidate the other students. Then, he would leave to prove whether this student in white clothes was guilty or innocent. When that happened, he would have a chance to push forward or to retreat. As he grabbed Who Are You's hand, it gave him a very warm and damp feeling upon contact. But just as he wanted to gather his strength to channel his soul power into Who Are You, he realized to his fear and surprise that Yua's hand had become as tough as steel. He couldn't move Who Are You no matter how much strength he used. Teachers cannot attack students in the academy. Shrek is an academy, not a prison. again, Huo Yuao stated in a low voice. The middle-aged man felt a wave of intense chill come from Huo Yuao's arm, and his entire body shivered from the cold. In the next moment, he could see that Huo Yuao's eyes had become extremely deep and profound, and he felt like his entire soul was being sucked into them. Huo Yuao shook his wrist lightly and flung the teacher's hand away. However, he still didn't attack. Instead, he took a step forward and planted his feet in front of the man as the formidable aura of a savage beast erupted from his body. Huo Yuao controlled this aura, and only the students in a small radius around him could feel it. That included Wu Feng, Dai Huobin, and the others, who swiftly stumbled backwards with frightened looks on their faces. The middle-aged man stumbled backwards as this aura intimidated him. He lost his balance and fell down on the ground just like that. His face had turned ghastly pale. He had never expected this youth who looked about 20 to exude such a frightening aura. It was like something that came from a savage beast in human form. Huo Yuao turned around at Ning Tian, who also had a frightened look on his face. He nodded in his direction and said, "Just go according to what you said, and invite Ding Kai to deal with this. Thank you for today, everyone. I'll take my leave now." Huo Yuao left the canteen with a single step and disappeared from everyone's sight. Ning Tian and Wu Feng exchanged a glance. Ning Tian's eyes were full of fear, while Wu Feng's eyes were full of exasperation. The corner of Wu Feng's mouth twitched as she laughed bitterly and shook her head. She was just talking about surpassing Huo Yuao, and he immediately gave her a show of strength. Even if this teacher wasn't considered a powerful soul master, he was a soul Douluo. Otherwise, how could he become an external staff member working for Shrek Academy? But even a teacher like this couldn't seem to resist Huo Yuao at all. Even though it had to do with his carelessness, the pressure that came from Huo Yuao was even more frightening than a titled Douluo. Furthermore, Huo Yuao shook off the teacher's grasp so easily. Did that mean his cultivation was? They weren't the only ones reacting this way. Those who were familiar with him, including Shi Wanyu, Dai Huobin, and Dalu, were all speechless. Shi Wanyu forced a laugh and said, "We'll always be dejected if we keep comparing ourselves to him. Looks like we won't ever catch up to him in this life." Wu Feng turned and left. "I'm going to look for Ding Kai." The other students from the inner courtyard were coming to from their astonishment. Someone muttered under his breath, "I think that senior said he's going to attend the Sea God's fated blind date. I have to hurry, too. It's about time." The other students who were single, especially the girls, thronged out and vanished in the blink of an eye. Those who already had partners stayed behind and surrounded the wretched, formerly arrogant teacher. Huo Yuao was also stumped once he left the canteen, because he had forgotten where he was supposed to assemble for the Sea God's fated blind date. Forget it, I'll just head to the lakeside. The event is held at the lake anyway, so that can't be wrong. He could still remember where he had started the other time. Huo Yuao immediately accelerated after he thought that, and ran towards the place where he had last participated in the event, where he had stepped onto the lake water. Huo Yuao quickly knew that his guess was right because he could see students from the inner courtyard, dressed in red uniforms, walking towards the lake in pairs and trios. They were walking in the same direction, and it was clear that these people were going to attend the Sea God's fated blind date. He couldn't be wrong as long as he followed them. Huo Yuao was a little dejected. If he had known better, he would have found a red uniform to wear. My white clothes might be a little too glaring when I go onto Sea God's lake later, but he couldn't care about that much anymore. He would risk being late if he went to change, and that would spell big trouble. "Hey, aren't you Yuao? Eldest senior sister was just worrying about looking for you. Afraid that you won't show up. It's fine as long as you're here." Two silhouettes quickly hurried to his side, and Huo Yuao immediately felt relieved when he saw them. They were old acquaintances. Teacher Wang, senior sister Han, greetings. Wang Yan was the teacher who had led Huo Yuao's team in the first season of the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Soul Dueling Tournament, and he was with his girlfriend, a former student from the inner courtyard who was second only to their eldest senior sister, Zhang Sun. She was Han Ruoro, who had already become a teacher. Han Ruoro's set of soul skills back then still left a deep impression on Huo Yuao, and he still had some lingering fears now that he thought about them. Wang Yan seemed a lot more cheerful compared to all those years ago. He smiled and said, "You're finally back, Yuao. Sun was worried out of her mind before this, and she even sent someone to look for you at the Tang Sect. It's fine as long as you're here. Let's go, quickly. We can't be late." Han Ruoro smiled and said, "That's right, we won't forgive you if you dare to be late. Eldest senior sister and I will be the hosts." Huo Yuao replied, "Eldest senior sister has ordered me, so how could I dare to be late? I went to grab something to eat in the canteen, and when I finished my food, I realized that I'd forgotten where we were supposed to assemble. It was great to run into you guys, but it doesn't really matter whether or not I'm there. If not for the Academy's rules, I wouldn't be here to share in the fun. I'm just here to go through the motions. Anyway." Han Ruoro's beautiful eyes rippled a little as she laughed and said, "You still have to be there, even if you're only there to go through the motions. Let's go." They walked towards the lake together. The sky hadn't turned completely dark, and he was actually earlier than he was back when he had first participated in the Sea God's fated blind date. The male students from the inner courtyard hadn't completely assembled yet, while the female students were specifically guided somewhere else. Huo Yuao had gone through the Sea God's fated blind date once before. He stared at the lake's surface that shone in the light of dusk, and fell into a bit of a daze. He could clearly remember how Donga had appeared in front of him that time with her true appearance. How she had called him idiot, and how she seemed like she was being sassy and blaming him while carrying a tinge of embarrassment and happiness. Huo Yuao would never forget it. How great would it be if I could return to that moment? Huo Yuao clenched his fists subconsciously, and his feelings and yearning for Donga were suddenly raised to their highest possible level in that moment. "Are you alright, Yuao?" Han Ruoro asked in surprise. Huo Yuao's spiritual power was much stronger compared to back then, and it naturally flowed out as his emotions surged up. The formidable spiritual aura even caused someone as powerful as Han Ruoro to react in shock. Huo Yuao was awakened from his memories, and hurriedly calmed down as he forced a smile and said, "I'm alright, senior sister." Han Ruoro smiled back. "As long as you're alright. I'm the host, so I'm going to go ahead and get busy. You two can wait here. Someone will come when it's time to begin." She waved to Wang Yan and Huo Yuao and drifted away. Huo Yuao watched Wang Yan's eyes as they followed Han Ruoro, which only withdrew when she could no longer be seen. Huo Yuao giggled and said, "Teacher Wang, you're deep in the river of love." Wang Yan blushed. "Nonsense. Let me warn you, Yuao, I'm one of the assessors for your graduation test tomorrow." "Ah. You're an assessor. Then you have to be a little more lenient when the time comes," Huo Yuao said with a faint smile on his face. Wang Yan snickered and said, "Yuao, let me remind you, don't think tomorrow's test is easy. Many people are waiting to take care of you." "Ah." Huo Yuao was momentarily stunned. "Take care of me? Why?" Wang Yan patted Huo Yuao on the shoulder and said sincerely, "Seems like you don't quite understand the assessment criteria for our inner courtyard students to graduate. Let me brief you." Huo Yuao hurriedly humbled himself and said, "Thank you, Teacher Wang. What exactly will happen?" Wang Yan chortled and said, "Every one of the inner courtyard students can be said to be prodigies chosen by heaven. Every one of them has outstanding talent, and they all have varying strengths. You guys are both outstanding and hardworking at the same time, which is the reason why you can stand a class above the rest and become part of the inner courtyard. If you wish to graduate from the inner courtyard, then you have to meet the academy standards in your strongest suit. Therefore, the inner courtyard's graduation assessment is different for every student, and everyone has different tasks." For some reason, Huo Yuao had an ominous feeling about this test, even though his cultivation was already at 8 rings. He could tell from Wang Yan's words that they didn't plan to be nice to him. His graduation assessment was supposed to just be going through the motions, but it didn't seem that easy after all. "Teacher Wang, then how is this graduation assessment going to be carried out?" Huo Yuao whispered. Wang Yan continued, "I don't quite know how the assessment is going to be executed, but it's definitely not going to be easy. I've heard that Elder Sun has personally designed your graduation assessment. You're the youngest, unprecedentedly so, member of the Sea Gods Pavilion. You have contributed much to the Academy, and the Academy has to nurture you well because of that. Therefore, your assessment has to be especially strict. The Sea Gods Pavilion will convene to discuss your examination tasks, but I'm not too sure about the details. I suspect the test won't be too easy, so good luck. I'm only one of the main assessors for you tomorrow. There are 7 in total. I know that Ding Yan, Ding Kai, Ding Shen, and Zhang Sun are a few of the remaining 6, but I'm not sure who the other 2 are." Huo Yuao's jaw slowly dropped as he listened to Wang Yan. His graduation assessment had brought the Sea Gods Pavilion together for a conference, and he had 7 judges. What was happening? Tomorrow's test. Teacher Sun is watching me closely, and the academy doesn't look like they're going to give me a good time. Life is too hard to live. Wang Yan laughed in amusement as he watched Huo Yuao's depressed look. All right, that's enough. That's the academy's care and concern for you. If you can't pass the assessment, you can just continue studying and cultivating in the academy. At worst, look at your eldest senior sister. She's become a teacher in the academy. You're part of the Sea Gods Pavilion, so you can do the same. Huo Yuao had a bitter taste in his mouth. He didn't think much about it before, but right now, Teacher Sun was forcing him to learn about forging soul tools properly, and Huo Yuao had to attend him. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to forge a proper pill furnace, and he couldn't raise the Tang Sect's overall strength. Therefore, he had to pass the graduation assessment tomorrow, no matter what. Huo Yuao calmed down as his thoughts stopped there. He would deal with problems as they came. The teachers still didn't know that he had officially become an 8-ring soul Douluo, so the assessment shouldn't be that difficult without advantage. After all, the academy's teachers and even the elders didn't know the full depth of his abilities. He had 5 powerful spirits to support him, so how could he not even pass a graduation assessment? Huo Yuao felt a lot better after thinking things through. The sky had gradually darkened by this time. Light dotted the shores of the Sea Gods Lake, and Huo Yuao could see with his spirit eyes that the outer courtyard students had already formed a large circle around the lake. That was especially true for those at the front, as they were squeezed right to the edge of the shore. Male students who were participating in the blind date. Get ready. Somebody hollered at everyone, and the male students from the inner courtyard who had already gathered swiftly assembled at the lakeside. Hurry, and go. Don't be late, Wang Yan ordered Huo Yuao. All right. Teacher Wang, you have to go easy on me tomorrow. You have also taught me, and if I can't pass the graduation assessment, it wouldn't look good on you, would it? Wang Yan laughed and said, nonsense. You're part of the Sea Gods Pavilion now, and your status is much higher than mine. Furthermore, I have never really taught you anything, so I can't help you. You'll have to rely on yourself. Huo Yuao no longer had time to continue chatting with Wang Yan, and he vanished and reappeared at the lakeside in a flash. There were so many eyes watching, and even if he was just going through the motions, he had to be a little serious. His mind was filled with tomorrow's graduation test, and he didn't have much energy to think about the Sea Gods' fated blind date. The lake's surface was dark, and it was hard to see anything through the rolling mists. Huo Yuao arrived by the lakeside and stood behind the throngs of male students. He was still thinking about how he would face the test tomorrow. A large boat sailed in from the distance. The boat was completely lit up. The inner courtyard's teachers and elders were here to observe the ceremony. Elder Sun sat at the front of the boat, hugging that large wine bottle that he hadn't used for a long time. There was a plate of chicken legs beside him, and he appeared as casual as ever. Elder Song, Yan Shaosh, Shen Liner, and the other elders, along some of the inner courtyard's teachers, were all on the boat. Kai Maya was the only one who was absent. Dean Kai was still dealing with a certain wretched, newly hired teacher. When he discovered that the student from the inner courtyard who he had threatened and whose badge he had confiscated was the youngest member of the Sea Gods Pavilion in Shrek Academy's history, he couldn't be any more depressed. He wasn't able to make a display of strength to the inner courtyard students, and instead, the inner courtyard students gave him one instead, using Huo Yuao's prestige. Just like in all the previous years, there were students from the inner courtyard who were participating in the Sea Gods' fated blind date for the first time, and there were some who had been here before. Those who had participated before knew what was going on, while those who were here for the first time were filled with eager anticipation. Life in the academy, all studying and cultivation, was undoubtedly stale and dry. An activity like this for the young male and female students was a fantastic opportunity to display their abilities, and also a good chance to get a partner. The large boat didn't sail to the shore, instead stopping in the middle of the lake. Beams shot out from the lake surface, and light rippled through the air as the outer courtyard students who were here to watch erupted in cheers and applause. There were 16 beams of light in total, all pale gold. There was a girl in a long white dress standing quietly on top of every beam, and all 16 girls were dressed in the same manner. They wore the same conical bamboo hats as before on their heads, and a white veil 3 feet long draped down and covered their faces completely. Standing in the faint cloud with the columns of light, they were just like elegant fairies on the lake surface. Their transcendent beauty was extremely eye-catching. The light on the lake surface awakened Huo Yuao from his contemplation. When he looked up at the fairies on the lake surface, he was a little dazed, and felt like his hair was standing on end. The emotional changes made his heart beat faster. Yes. Even if he was just here to go through the motions, how could he remain calm when he was once again part of the Sea Gods' fated blind date? Everything was almost identical to back when he had first participated. Back then, one of the girls underneath those conical bamboo hats was his donga. Huo Yuao felt like he was dreaming as he stared at the scene in front of him, and couldn't control his emotions. The 16 girls were spread out in single file. They were facing the lakeside, just standing there quietly as the male students on the lakeside were eagerly raring to go. The outer courtyard students on the lakesides were probably even more excited than the participating inner courtyard students, and each cheer and applause was louder than the last. Right at this moment, 2 slightly stronger beams of white light shot into the air, and 2 more figures appeared. They were both incredibly beautiful. The one on the left was clad in a flowing white dress, Ruo. She had managed to get a change of clothes and even put on some makeup during this time, and was like a snow lotus blooming on the icy mountains as white light shone down on her. Huo Yuao's eldest senior sister, Zhang Sun, was naturally to her right. Just like back when he had first participated in the Sea Gods' fated blind date, Zhang Sun was in a long yellow dress, like a blooming tulip unrivaled in beauty. The outer courtyard students cheered even more vigorously when the 2 gorgeous women appeared. The shore of Sea Gods Island was a bit further away, but they were still clearly audible. Love was the topic of eternity, and something that youths both male and female yearned for the most. The outer courtyard students were still young, and the academy had been very strict on them. Their longings were very satisfied even if they could only watch this event. This was the first time that the Sea Gods' fated blind date had been opened for the outer courtyard to watch. Ruo raised her voice and began to speak. The meeting of fate upon the Sea Gods' lake. Love is found in but a moment, as Shrek lives on for 100 centuries. Welcome, everyone, to this beautiful evening by the Sea Gods' lake. The annual Sea Gods' fated blind date is about to begin. I am tonight's host, and I am representing myself and my eldest senior sister to wish good luck to all students from the inner courtyard who are participating that they might find the love that they want and deserve. At the same time, welcome to all elders from the Sea Gods' Pavilion and teachers who are here to watch. I speak on behalf of the students to express our sincere gratitude to our teachers. Without your patient nurturing and support, we would not have achieved what we have today. To our juniors from the outer courtyard, if you wish to obtain a love that the academy approves of, and to confess to the person that you love, then you have to work hard and cultivate, and try to become part of the inner courtyard one day. Cheers and applause erupted once more. The students from the outer courtyard, especially the male students, seemed like they were on stimulants. If not for the fact that they had to watch the Sea Gods' fated blind date, the beautiful Ruo's words was enough to make them forget about how tired they were from their continuous cultivating, and they couldn't wait to go back and continue. Yan Shaosh was sitting in the large boat. He smiled and said, seems like the decision to let the little fellows from the outer courtyard watch was an extremely correct one. When the Sea Gods' fated blind date is over, I can guarantee that they will have a cultivation climax. The event has just begun. I'm sure the effects will be even better later on. Shen Liner grunted coldly as she muttered under her breath, sleazy. There was nothing Yan Shaosh could do against her quip. He could only stop talking as he shook his head helplessly. Zhang Sun continued the speech. Her voice traveled far and wide as she said, now, let us invite all the male students who are participating in the blind date to prepare themselves. 36 pillars will appear on the lake's surface after this, and the students closest to our Sea Gods fairies will proceed to the first round. The students at the back are not likely to receive a suitable placing in the first round. So, pay attention, everyone. No matter what methods you use, as long as you land on the leaves of the water lilies where the pillars of light are, you will have taken that spot. Do not fall into the water, as that will strip you of your right to continue in the Sea Gods' fated blind date. Get ready, everyone. 3, 2, 1, begin. 36 pillars of light suddenly shot out from underneath the lake's surface. These pillars were neatly separated into 3 rows, every row about 5 meters apart from each other, and distributed equally about 100 meters away from the female students, roughly 200 meters away from the shore. The students from the inner courtyard immediately made their moves once Zhang Sun finished speaking, like bolts of lightning as they swiftly pounced towards those pillars of light. They all wanted to gain the upper hand and display their abilities, as it was the best way to gain the heart of the girls that they liked. Huo Yuao was the only one who didn't immediately move. Everything before him was just like how he and longer had fixed their relationship. Although the people were different, everything in front of him seemed identical. The male students had already soared into the air as they rushed towards those pillars, and Yuhao slowly drifted out from the lakeside. He didn't display any of his abilities as he followed behind, and was last as he landed on a water lily. However, he didn't release his martial soul at all, and he even used imitation to change his white clothes to red. He didn't want to become the center of attention, as he was just going through the motions anyway. All he had to do was to maintain a low profile. All the students were in place. The students who had obtained positions in the first row were all overjoyed, and smiled happily. Everything was difficult in the beginning, and they had a big advantage because they had finished the first step properly. They were the only ones who had this row, and that meant they could be seen directly by the young women. The sea god's fated blind date wasn't just a chance to confess, it was also a chance to display their strength and abilities. Who didn't want the academy to notice and pay attention to them? Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.